Hello and welcome to a brand new video. In today's video I will be trying out some more pens from Arrtx. These are the other two Simptap sets. Arrtx has a total of 3 sets for these pens. I tried out the first one in a previous video and these two are basically upgrades from that one. So how it works is every pen that was in the set before is included in the upgraded set with some extra colours, so you get to pick and choose which ones you want, which I think is a great idea. The pens themselves are once again a brush nib pen, which is my favourite type. I love using brush nibs because you can get thin lines and thick lines, and they have a chamber of acrylic paint in the centre of the pen. These new ones come with a lid on the end that you have to press down to activate the paint, which I thought was a really great idea initially, but I'll get into it a little bit later as to why I'm not so keen on it anymore. So starting off with a swatch sheet, you might be wondering why these swatch sheets look so weird, and it's because I divided the total number of pens by 7 instead of by 6 for some reason, so now they act as a jigsaw to each other. I didn't want to show you the swatch sheet for the smaller set because all the pens, like every pen in this set is in this set, so it was like, it seemed a little pointless showing you both of them. This here is the previous set and every colour inside it is also present in both of these sets. Onto the sketchbook. I have some pages already in my sketchbook so that I can just get straight into drawing. What I tend to do is leave paper in the previous pages I've worked on so that pencils and stuff don't smudge. For this video I wanted to start on the October prompts I was planning to do. So as the video title suggests, it's like Inktober, but it isn't Inktober, it is other people's prompt lists for October to do instead of Inktober. So the two prompt lists I am planning to do for this month is Endicott's Tea Party by Lani Lavendula and Badtober by Flesh.png. And you might be thinking, how am I going to do two? The thing is, I couldn't decide which one to pick, so I decided to create a more unique version for myself by meshing the two of them together. So far it's been working out really fine for me. So for this first piece, it is a combination of cartoon character and secret. I kind of decided to go for a bit of a nostalgic route for some of these prompts. So I went with Mimi and Palmon from the first season of Digimon, and for the secret aspect they are looking at a Digimon egg and the whole thing is like, what's inside the egg? Yeah, I do want to kind of just give you guys a heads up that these drawings aren't necessarily spooky. It wasn't until I'd mostly finished that I was like, oh, I didn't really do anything spooky, it's not really feeling Halloweeny. Which isn't a huge problem because I still really like how these turned out, but I think moving forward with prompts I might try and make them more Halloween themed, but I'm not going to like push myself or anything because I really struggle actually completing these monthly October challenges in the past, so if I can't make it Halloween themed, it doesn't matter as long as I can try and get it done. So I started off with a sketch and then I am going in with the coloured pens. The range of colours was great for this, I could get basically every colour that I wanted. The only issue is as much as I like these pens because you get so much paint in each individual pen, there are a couple problems that you run into. As you saw with the red on Mimi's dress, sometimes the ink comes out loads and it is really hard to control. Then other times it doesn't come out enough. Sometimes the paint has separated, which is why you need to shake it. When you leave them to sit for a little while, the paint separates, and the problem is some of the separated colour bleeds into the nib. So with pens like J005 or J011, they separate into a more yellow colour where they're usually like a pale cream, and it's difficult to cover it with the colour it's supposed to be even after you've mixed it properly because the yellow can be so strong and it just keeps coming through the nib. So there are a couple times in this piece where I will be trying to use a lighter cream colour and it will be very yellowy, which you might see at some point. This also happened with a couple of the other colours, like a purple, a blue, and like a green, where after the initial swatching, I've not really had the colour that came out the first time since. It's always been like a super dark version of it where it's separated and it won't mix within the nib properly. And it's not a huge issue. After a while of fixing it, you can get the accurate colours. It's just that they can separate quite quickly, so you do have to fix them quite a lot, and that is the only issue I have with it. But there are some colours that just don't do this, like the green that I used on Palmon. That green always comes out perfectly. Some of the pinks as well. Some of them just work fine, which is great. So yeah, for this piece I was really excited to draw some Digimon art because it is something I grew up watching. Only the first season, I've never really watched more than that. But yeah, I used to watch it a lot as a kid and with my brother, and it's been so long since I watched it that I'm like, I really should watch it again, because I think the last time I watched it was when I was taking my GCSE exams, because I was very ill during those. I had glandular fever and I spent basically all day every day like in like a half dead state on the sofa just watching the old Digimons, and it really got me through it because I was not feeling great. If you've had glandular fever, you know that it is like your face just feels horrible because it's the glands under your jaw typically. Nothing's nice. You can't swallow properly. Breathing can be hard. It was just a horrible time. So it was nice to revisit the Digimon aspect of that. Not the rest of it, but the Digimon part, that's nice to remember. Obviously, Mimi wears a cowboy hat, so of course I love her. Her design is it's so good. While I was looking up references for this, I realised that they've done a reboot of it, I think in 2020, and they've like changed her dress in a way that I'm like, why would you do that? They removed the frills, and like, I love the frills. The frills are like the best part of her dress. They're so top design, you know? So I was very surprised that they'd removed all of those. Well, what I typically like to do when it comes to colouring pieces like this is put down a base layer of colour first and then go over the top with the shadows and the extra colours that I want to add. There is a helicopter outside. That is perfect. Which is something these pens do really well. Most of the colours lay over each other so beautifully. They get such great coverage. So that is something I really enjoy doing with these pens because I like building up from the base layer. And then I decided to go in with pencil to add the like extra details and the lining, because I like these pens and you can get really good line art with these, but I just really love how it looks having pencil line art, and these are also the Arrtx pencils, so they work really nicely together, which is something that always makes me happy. These pencils have been great, honestly. So I just chose colours that basically matched whatever I was outlining, and it seemed to work quite well. I then go in later with a slightly darker colour. Sometimes it's a dark purple or a dark blue, just to add a bit more definition, to bring some more depth to the picture so you can see some items are in front of other items. And I'm just looking at that egg. With the egg, I was trying to give it like shading and highlights, and it kind of just, it looks bizarre, but in a way that I both like and don't like. I'm not really sure. I think maybe it's because the highlight on the top ended up being darker. I wanted it to have like yellow hues, but the orange that I used on top is darker than the base colour, so it looks strange, like it should be a shadow, but it isn't. And then Palmon. Palmon is probably my favourite thing. She's so cute. I love drawing plants, so then having a plant creature, because I also really love drawing creatures, she's just like the best of everything for me. So you might have already noticed I'm going for a very simple style with these drawings. So I'm doing my typical dash for eyes because I really like how it looks, and you can actually still get quite a lot of emotion. I think it more relies on body posture at this point when you do eyes like that, but I just find it really fun. But it is a lot easier for me as well because I was planning to do 4 prompts for this video, and to make it more manageable, just doing my simple fun drawing style, just it made it easier. I just really like how it ended up looking. For the next day, I had the prompts something noodly and armchair. So I started with an armchair, as you can see, which was actually surprisingly fun to draw. And I wanted to draw a girl with like longer limbs than usual, sitting, lounging on the armchair, eating noodles to try and be more accurate to the prompt. And I wanted her long legs to seem kind of noodly as well. And I also wanted to include my dog Manchi because I love him so much, but he just feels like he fits the description noodly. And then while I was drawing the girl, and I gave her these like bangs, and I realized this when I planned her out as well, I was like, she kind of looks like Noodle from Gorillas. I was like, which is kind of perfect, because then it fits the prompt way more than I could have planned. So I lent into it a bit and I tried to give her some of the clothes that Noodle has worn in the past. So I gave her like a baseball t-shirt and her stripy socks, and I really, really love how it looks, especially on the armchair. This one, you might be able to tell it was harder for me to sketch compared to the Digimon one, because trying to make it look like she was actually sat on the armchair is something that I struggle to draw in general usually, trying to make it look like someone's interacting with an object. But I do end up really liking how it looks. But yeah, I had to actually like go in with my proper pencil and trying to figure everything out. I have her holding a Game Boy, which I don't think is that clear. It looks like it could be a phone or whatever, but because of the whole Digimon thing, I was like, this is when I was like, I want to stick with the nostalgia feeling a little bit, because like I grew up playing with Game Boys, and also I grew up listening to Gorillas as well, so I was like, this is feeling like just a whole bundle of nostalgia. My dog isn't necessarily nostalgia because he was a puppy when I was younger, but I really wanted him to be there as well because I love him to pieces. So yeah, this is when I was struggling with the separating colours a little bit, because she ended up a little bit more yellow than that colour is on the swatch sheet, and it ends up looking okay once I've added all the other colours. But initially I was getting a little frustrated. and because you can see it's also pilling the paper a little bit because it was very thin. And you can see here when I was putting the sock on, that is a bit better, that is closer to what the colour should be. It looks fine in the end once I add all the other colours that do come out a bit thicker. So I gave her blue hair, and initially I gave her green hair for in the background. That will change because it blends in too much. And same with her shorts. Her shorts are brown right now, but I decided to change that later. My mistake. The colour that I put over her socks and her top is actually, I think it's J005, and the colour I used for her skin is J011, and because they were both bleeding so much, they looked like almost exactly the same, and it fooled me doing the voiceover. I got very confused for a second there. They're actually different, and because I wanted the socks and the t-shirt to be very clearly different, different from her skin, I went over it now with a white pen, or with the white pen, so that it would lighten it a little bit, but it came out very thin, which kind of worked in my favour because then it wasn't pure white. But yeah, this is typically because when drawing objects that have white on them, I say this all the time, I don't like going for straight up white. I don't like how it looks. It doesn't feel like it is grounded in reality. So I typically like to go for things that are like slightly off-white, and I feel like it always looks better, and you can then give your picture a different tone. So in this case it gives it more of a warm tone because it has like yellow and orange in the white, but you could make it colder by going for like a really pale blue, if that makes sense. It makes sense in my head. My logic makes sense to me, but I don't know how to express that in words. I decided to give her odd coloured shoes because in one design of Noodle she has these glasses that are blue and pink, which I originally wanted to do for her design, but I didn't end up doing because I thought it would just look a bit too much. So instead I put it on her shoes, and I really like how it looks. I think it makes it a little bit more interesting. And then for the armchair, I just went in with this brown. I wanted to go in and add more shading to it later, but I was like, this is when I was like, the brown of the shorts is gonna blend in too much. So I changed it to a almost black. It isn't black, it is the grey black, because I don't usually like adding pure black. I try to avoid it, as I've said in the past. I'm not opposed to it anymore, but if I can, I will use something else. And I used this just for the chopsticks, her necklace, and then the legs on the chair, and I think it looks really nice because it also ties it in more when you use it in more places or when you use any colour in more than one place on a picture. It just helps tie it all in. And then for my dog, I just went in with this grey that has some blue tones in it because he is kind of like a blue dog. He is a lurcher, so he's also very fluffy, which I love. He's like the perfect dog for me. There were just some perfect colours for him in this set. So then to try and start getting the definition on the chair, I just kind of started lining where the original lines were. I usually like to leave some white spaces when colouring it in so I can still see the form of whatever it is I'm colouring in. It's really helpful, and I highly recommend it, especially since I then cover up later so it doesn't look too messy. And then I went in with a slightly dark pink because I wanted to add more shading to the chair. It needed a lot more depth to it. And the pink just gave it a lot of colour, which I felt it really needed, because otherwise I was really worried that the chair would look completely separate to Noodle, but this way I feel like they look like they're in the same setting. Adding in the noodles themselves was a little tricky because I was using one of those lighter beige pens that I said I was having trouble with, because they wouldn't mix properly within the nib. I had to layer over them several times because they were very, very thin, and layering over it worked well, so that's a plus. And I did also fix the skin a little bit to cover up some of the original pencil lines because the skin layer was also quite thin when I first put it down. So for the pens, as I mentioned earlier, the pen caps I thought were a really nice idea initially, but they come off so easily that I'm constantly losing them, and they get left behind in the boxes when you pull them out, and then you have all the pen caps at the bottom of the box and the pens won't go back in so easily. I don't really like them. The first set that they made didn't have them, and I don't know that they need them, and I'm just constantly forgetting to put them back on. I'm constantly losing them. They just don't sit on strong enough, as strong as I think they should. Similarly to the last one, I went in and lined everything with pencil, and it made everything pop, because up to this point I was kind of worried. I was like, I feel like it looks really messy, and the pencil just neatened it up, and I'm very happy with how it turned out. So yeah, this ended up being a way longer video than I initially planned it to be. I didn't think it would be this long, but that is because I really enjoyed drawing all of these prompts that I didn't even realize that I was like spending so long on these pieces, because I was just happy to do it. Using paint markers is something that I really enjoy because they can create such bold images. I don't know how to explain it. I just really like how they look. So because I was having so much fun with this, yes, this is quite a long video, and I hope you don't mind. I'm hoping it's quite a nice chill one. I'm curious as well if you guys are taking part in any challenges this month. Which ones are you doing? Are you doing either of the ones that I've done in this video? I would love to know what you guys are doing and how you're finding it so far. So after finishing all of the line art, I wanted to just create a bit more definition. Is that the right word? I didn't want the prompts, these two prompts, to bleed into each other so much, so there were a couple places where the pen kind of pushed up against the work of the previous prompt, so I went around it with a white gel pen to just try and create a proper border between the two of them. Items will be listed in the description below, so if you are curious about anything I've used in this video, you can check down there. So moving on to prompt number 3. This one was fashion and Ruby, and I won't lie, I was stumped initially. I planned everything out beforehand though, so you can't tell that I was stumped, but I decided to go down the nostalgia route, and so I chose to redraw May from Pokemon Ruby, and I wanted to just give her like some new clothes, and I won't say they are like the most fashionable clothes, but they were fun to draw, and I'm really glad I did this. So it does still kind of hit the nostalgia thing for me, because Pokemon Ruby is, I think it's the first Pokemon game I ever played. My dad got Ruby and Sapphire for me and my brother when we were younger, when it came out. I think I was like 5 or something, so it really does like hold a dear place in my heart. So I decided to try and just give her a different type of outfit, but try and keep it still inspired by her original ones, as well as like a couple redraws down the line. And I also wanted to include the starters in whatever I ended up doing, because so it's obvious that it is Pokemon Ruby, because otherwise I think it would just look like some random girl. And I'm just really happy that I did, because they look so adorable, and I love, if you don't know, I love drawing Pokemon. I love drawing little creatures, so this was really fun to do. And it was tricky initially trying to figure out how to incorporate them all. Mudkip was really easy. I just wanted her to be holding him kind of like he was a toy. And then Torchic I just have at her feet, looking like maybe she's going to pull her laces off. It was Trico that I was struggling with, because I was like, how am I going to include Trico? I really want to include him. But so then when I was like, well, she needs to be doing something with her other arm, maybe she could be holding a shopping bag. I was like, perfect, I'll put Trico in the shopping bag. So I really like how they all end up looking and their little interactions with her. And it was just a whole lot of fun to draw. Like I said, I didn't realize how long it took me to do. but I think it might actually be my favourite piece from this video, again because I love drawing Pokemon. And Torchic, I think she just turned out so adorable because I really love drawing birds, and she is also a Pokemon, so she's just like everything I love. Yeah, I gave May different types of eyes from the other ones because I don't actually know why. I just wanted her to be more expressive with her eyes. So unlike, well, I guess Noodle doesn't have any eyes, does she? I had her fringe cover her eyes, so it isn't like breaking a pattern or anything. The pattern's already been broken. But I gave her more eye-like eyes than I gave Mimi, which I think works really well for this illustration. She was very fun to colour because I was sticking mostly to the colours of her original outfits, and those colours just go so well together, which is obviously that's why they chose them, because they look nice. And the colours from the box that I had worked perfectly because there were also like perfect shading versions of every single colour that I wanted to use. So she was very fun to draw. Her hair was annoying initially because the pen separated and it was like so difficult to mix. It ended up more orange than I wanted, but I do fix this later when I manage to get it mixed properly, and I'll go over it again. Her shoes were a lot of fun. I wasn't expecting it. I just kind of took one of her shoe designs and turned it into more of a sneaker, and I really love how they turned out. I don't know if I personally would ever wear these in real life, but I don't know, if I lived in the Pokemon world, maybe I would. I quite like them. They look very sporty. I did then also add, after the fact, some I think they're bike shorts underneath her actual shorts, because I wasn't going to initially, but when I was looking at her, she was just missing something, and in all of her other designs, I believe, she is wearing bike shorts of some kind, so it felt rude not to include them. So I'm happy I did, because it added a nice barrier, I guess, between her shorts and her legs. It's more of her colour scheme, so it just makes it look like her a bit better, I think. And I wanted, really the only thing that I added to this is I gave her a cardigan jacket thing because I love them, and I thought it would look quite nice because, you know, it is coming up to, well, it is October, isn't it? So I thought it would be nice to give her something a little cozy, despite the fact that she is wearing shorts in this. And I made it a nice pink because honestly, I did not know what colour I was going to colour in. I didn't know what would go with her current colour scheme, and this seemed to work really nicely. It is also the same colour that I used for her blush, so it ties it in, but I then had to be careful as well of not having her blush right next to the cardigan. Colouring in Magikarp, what is wrong with me? Colouring Mudkip was a joy because he is super fun to draw and colour in. His little cheeks are so funny and he looks so angry, and I just love it. One of my concerns with the cardigan was because it is all bunched up around her hand, I was very worried that it would make it look like she has a very short arm instead of what is actually happening, where her arm is bent and it's meant to be receding slightly before coming back into the foreground. So one thing I was trying to be very aware of was including shadows and stuff to make it very clear that her arm is doing something in there. And I think by the end, I do think it works, but at this stage I was starting to get kind of nervous, and I did already add a little bit of shadow that I think fixed it a little bit, but later on, thankfully, adding the line art, it fixes it more because it makes the creases very apparent. Then I went in to line her, and I just did the same thing that I did with everyone else, and I used a red to line the skin parts of her, and then the rest of the items are using either colours similar to what they're outlining or a dark blue, because blue and purple are perfect for lining like objects, I believe. This really helped add more definition, adding creases to her clothes and stuff. I did, unfortunately, I messed up when filming her hair. My camera stopped working basically, and it's only one small amount, and thankfully I noticed pretty quick, but I was still kind of annoyed that it hadn't been recording, so you will see a jump in a second. While I had been lining, I realised that I'd completely forgotten to add part of the design that I had initially planned for. So she has a orange side bag thingy, I don't know what it's called, that is attached to her belt, and I also wanted there to be a strap that wrapped around her leg to imply like more stability with the bag, but also to just break up the blocks of colours, like on her shorts for example. So I went in and I added the pen because I'd forgotten somehow, and I'm glad I remembered because it really needs just extra within the shorts. So while that is drying, I'm finishing up lining just some of the other things, and then I'll go in and line that a bit later. And you can see at this point is when I add the creases for the sleeve, which I really think help create that there's more going on there. And I was very happy at that point that the arm didn't look short. Like, it might still look a bit short, maybe it's me deceiving myself, but it looks fine to me. I then went around and added a light blue just to circle some patches. I did this on Mimi as well, but I forgot to say. I don't know why, but it makes the shading look nicer in my opinion. It gives it an almost like rim lighting. I don't know what you'd call it, but it's something that I'd seen artists do before, like ages ago, and for whatever reason while I was lining this I just remembered, so I was like, yeah, I think that would look quite nice here. I might have even done it in one of my previous videos, I don't know, but it is a technique or whatever that I'd completely forgotten about and I just decided to use today, and I think it looks really nice, especially on Mudkip's tail. I really like how his tail looks. And I went in and I added a dark blue or dark purple liner again just to define some things, and then I went in with the white gel pen and just added her eyes, some sparkle to her eyes. So then for prompt number 4, it is SpongeBob, but it's SpongeBob and Shore, and I decided to plan this one with you guys in this video. So as you can see here, I used my little idea sketchbook to plan things out. It's just something I like to do, and I was kind of worried for this because I won't lie, like I grew up watching SpongeBob, but I don't actually like SpongeBob. Like I did when I was younger, I used to love it so much, so it still kind of fits into that nostalgia vibe that I was going for. But I don't like him now. And I'm really sorry to all the people who do like him. But I wasn't looking forward to adding him to this page. So I was like, how am I going to do this in a way that I'm like happy? Because I was like, I really like how the page is looking so far and I want to keep liking it. So how am I going to include him in a way where I don't just hate part of the page now, like it doesn't ruin it? So I was planning out a couple things here, and that started with me just drawing SpongeBob, because that is the best way to start these things in my opinion, is just to draw the item itself and then figure out from there. So I have one where he's like lying on the beach and another one where he's getting splashed by the waves, because obviously it is shore, so I wanted to show the shoreline. And I went with the one where he is just lying there because I thought it was quite funny, because what is he doing? Obviously he looks a lot bigger in this picture than he actually is, but I don't really care. He's like meant to be really small because he is a sponge, but I kind of just drew him the size of like, I don't know, a small creature. And I do find this funny because I'm like, is he sunbathing? Is the small amount of water that's reaching him hydrating him enough? Or is he dying? Is he on the beach just drying out? Like, I don't know. But it's cute. I didn't give him his eyes, his very what is the word I'm looking for? His iconic eyes. I gave him the dashes that I usually use again, because it is the only way I could stomach having him on this page. And I know that sounds pretty extreme, but it's true. I didn't want typical SpongeBob on my page. And because of this, I don't mind that he's there now. He doesn't look that terrible. He's grown on me since filming this. Because originally I was like planning on covering him up with like the prompts or something so you could see him if you lifted them, but now I'm not sure. I've gotten used to it and I kind of like him being there because he doesn't look really annoying. So you can see here I'm just drawing in the shore, I guess. I wanted it to have like the I don't know what it's called, but when you have the water receding and it leaves like white behind a little bit, I just wanted it to have that like nice gradient of blue to white without it being proper white. So then I ran into the issue of it's blending into the beach a little bit, but it does look a bit better when I add the line art and I add some actual proper white to it later, which fixes it a bit. But a lot of the cream colours I had, the J005 and the J011, they were just looking incredibly similar, because you wouldn't believe that there are two different creams on those lines on the white part right now, but there are. It's just impossible to tell. I did also add a little starfish. Is it Patrick? Probably not, who knows, but I did think it was like a cute little nod to Patrick. This one was a very simple one because I'd already done 3 that were a lot more than I was meaning to do. I decided to take this one as a bit of a break one, so yeah, I went for a very simple, smaller one that yeah, it just made it nicer to round this off with, just something nice and simple. So to try and make the white part of the water stand out a bit more, I did line it with blue and I think it was like a brown, and I think the brown was probably a mistake because it made it look weird and kind of dirty. But the blue was really nice because it kind of matched the water. But I then went in with a white gel pen to try and make it look like, it's not froth. I don't know what is it called? What's this part of the water called? It's just water. But it made it look nicer, and I added some sparkles to the beach as well because I was like, does it look like a beach? I don't know, adding sparkles made me think it looked like a beach more. So then at this point I was like, there are a lot of blank spaces on the page that I would like to fill up. So in this corner I decided to do a sort of study of my Game Boy because like I mentioned earlier, I didn't think it was very clear that Noodle was holding a Game Boy. So I thought drawing one up here might make it a little more obvious that that is what is in her hand. It's also because I am like incredibly proud of my Game Boy. It is the one that my dad bought me in, is it like 2003 or something, which is when the game came out, and it is the Groudon version, the ruby version of the Game Boy, and it is a little bit scratched up on the surface, but I'm like so incredibly surprised at how well young me kept this in good condition, because I was a nightmare when I was younger when it came to keeping things nice, because I've had a couple DS's in the past because I am not good at keeping them safe, and I would drop them on the floor, break them, crack them, you name it. So I am incredibly surprised that the one and only Game Boy that I've ever had is like almost in perfect condition. Like, it doesn't look like it is over 20 years old, and I'm just like, I love it so much. Yeah, so basically it was just really fun drawing this because it is something that I cherish quite a lot, and I don't know, it is kind of fun to just draw things that you care about. What am I saying? It was also fun to do because I had just been doing like predominantly character art on the page, so trying to do something that was kind of like a still life reference kind of thing, of a real life object. It just made a nice change, and it was interesting trying to make it look real. I think it looks kind of cartoony in the end, which I actually really like. I think it helps it fit into the page a bit better, and I wanted to add this like starburst explosion, I don't know, effect behind it, because I thought it was missing something, and it kind of also made me think a bit of the Pokemon anime. You know, like at the end of the episode, they'd have that behind the Who's That character or whatever. It just made it a bit more fun, I think. I then added some more white highlights, which I feel kind of gave it this sort of jelly sort of look. I do like it, definitely needed it, but it does look really squishy, like you could poke it. So then down here there was another blank space I wanted to fill, and I decided to draw a Digivice, I think is what they're called, from Digimon, and I went with the design from the first season because it is my favourite. It is the one I think of the most when I think of Digimon, and I've always really wanted one. I'm actually thinking at some point of maybe trying to sculpt one, because I really do want to have one as like a prop kind of thing just in my room, which I mean it could be doable, but it is also going to be kind of tricky because I struggle drawing things that aren't, not drawing things, I struggle sculpting things that aren't like soft and round. When it's supposed to have hard edges, I kind of struggle with it a bit more. Yeah, I think I will probably make one of these, because I have some Sculpey laying around. I could just do it, so maybe I will. And I went with the typical blue one because that is the one that I think Ty has in the show, and again it's the one I think of the most. But I did kind of change it up a little bit because I added my fun shading thing that I like to do, so it kind of looks a bit gradienty at the bottom where I add some pink. I really like how it ended up looking. And I just really want a Digivice. And then doing the same thing with the line art, it gave it a lot more colourfulness. It made the grooves actually look like grooves rather than just lines. And putting the pink on the top and then the blue on the bottom, I think really helped with the gradient feeling that I'd had earlier. And I just really like how it turned out. I really like how it looks in this part of the page. So for the final part, for the final blank space on the page, I decided to basically just put that, you know, this is part of the October challenge in 2024, and I wanted to include something Pokemon again, so that there was kind of like an extra thing with each of the first 3 prompts. And I decided to add Magikarp because I really enjoyed drawing him in my Pokemon video I did a little while ago, and I thought it would be fun to include him here. So I have him just like in front of the title, and he also has similar colours to May, so I kind of felt it would fit really nicely on the page. And yeah, I really like this orange red that is the base of Magikarp. It is probably my favourite colour in this set. It just looks so nice and vibrant. Something I like to do with Magikarp in this style is make his like feeler whisker things really long, like exaggeratingly long. It makes it more fun in my opinion, and it creates this cool effect. I don't know what you'd call it, because he is quite a like small round creature. Having then long tendrils coming off of it, I just think creates a nice contrast, is maybe the word that I'm looking for. And then for the title, I just wanted to stick to a classic purple and orange. Because it is October, I wanted some kind of Halloween theme to be present. So I thought this was probably the best way to do it, to have it look like a sort of Halloween title. And I think it looks really nice with the page because I have purples and oranges present throughout the whole spread. It fits in really nicely, but I didn't want it to be too boring, I guess. So initially I was just going to add orange dots to the gaps anywhere that there was in the words, except for the B, because the B was a bit small. But you will see a bit later, after I finish lining, that I do add some more orange because it was feeling very lacking. Like I'm very happy with how this spread turned out, but at this point in the video I was thinking that it did kind of need something to tie all of the pieces together, because they were feeling very just thrown onto a page. And adding the little what should I call it, like a banner, a block of orange across the top of the second page, it just ties it in nicely. And it also is one of the reasons why I decided to maybe not cover up the SpongeBob piece, because it ties that page in together really well. And as much as I would like to cover up SpongeBob, I really like how the colours all look together, so I might have to find somewhere else to put the actual prompt pieces that I've printed out. I haven't yet figured that out, but I don't know, I've got plenty of time. I've got the rest of the month to figure it out. But yes, that is it for this spread. I had a lot of fun doing it. But yeah, I'm really happy with how everything turned out, and I think they all fit the prompts quite nicely. I really liked working with these pens, especially with the pencils. They just work together so nicely, and it is something that I think I'll never get over how nice they look together. So yeah, I really hope you've enjoyed this video. As I mentioned earlier in the video, I would love to know if you guys are taking part in any sort of challenge this month. I am going to definitely try and finish this one this month. I have been notoriously bad in the past at keeping up with them, and I think I've only ever completed one once in my life, at least an October based challenge, and I think that was back in 2018. So it would be really nice if I could finish this one, but again, if I can't, I'm not going to stress it too much. It's not the end of the world. I'm just going to do my best. So I hope you've enjoyed these first 4 prompts. I want to say a huge thank you to Arrtx for once again sending me these pens to try out. A huge thank you to everyone who has watched this far in the video, and a very special thank you to my Patreons: Dispit, Megan Palmer, Grimclow, The Waffle of Life, Non-Toxic, Saint Nix, LP, Kira May, Kay, Joanna, Sir Studalot, Mila, VB, Pretty Rotten, Crescent Frog, Joanna Snake Moon, Humble Frogs, Local Fishkeeper, Mold Ghoul, Artmancy, Farrar Ware, Sun Arts, Molly Marula, Scout Radley, Sammy Bear 127, Kenzania, Jade S, Arrow, Charlie, Malorus, Ghosty, Jess H30, Cindy King, Vlada, Art by Lavender, A Woodsy, Rainbow Tea, Breaded Nuggets, Neva Thorpe, Lindsay, Humani, The Moss Bug, Nox, Thresher, Catbird House, The Tormented Shadow, Sweet and Hopeless, Pocket, Cool Desert 525, Misfit, Jordan's Tiny Planet, Cheesy Rosebud, The Coffee Rain, Black Jackal Art, Layla Loves You, Halachu, Faith Kim, and A Wendu. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. I really appreciate it, and I will hopefully have another video out for you guys soon.